we have another presentation. It's not listed, but where I had asked that the manager see if he could get some explanation of what we're doing working with the schools for safety in light of the horrible tragedy that occurred in Florida. And we have our assistant chief here to talk about that. Deputy chief, excuse me.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to talk. I'd also like to recognize that both superintendents, Superintendent Cook from Hazlet, and also the superintendent from Okemos is here, Ms. Zachary Ross. We've been in touch here recently, working with both districts on revising and updating plans like we've been doing for the last several years. So I'm going to kind of go over 5 points of the things that we do as a police department to work with the school districts, not just the public schools. We also have a couple of private learning institutions that we work with, and also some private businesses that call on occasion and ask for advice, instruction, training on active violence situations. So in 2001, our agency started out by train the trainers for responding to active violence. It used to be we would respond with 4 officers and go in and neutralize the threat. That training has since evolved, but since 2001, we do annual training within the police department on response to these calls. One of the things that people want to keep in mind is that if somebody wants to do violence, they're going to attempt to do violence. The keys to it is to delay their ability to have access to where they want to get and to increase the response time of the responders. The faster we can get there, the faster we can stop it, and the longer it takes for them to get inside, the better we are. So over the last 15 years, we've been working with both districts. We've done tabletop exercises. We've reviewed their emergency response plans. We attend their lockdown drills and kind of critique, give suggestions. A lot of times they're very impressed that 1,400 students in Okemos High School can be so quiet that you don't think there's anybody in the building. So same for the school districts. The kids get it. It's amazing to attend one of these drills when you see a large building that you know is full of children, but it's like a ghost town. So we work with them on that. We've revised their plans on at least 2 separate occasions, leveraging grant funds, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And just recently, I've met with both of them the last week to kind of go over their emergency response plans, look at some of the new things that are coming on the forefront of how to handle these situations and making sure that we're doing the best we can do here in the township. So the next thing is kind of a talk about equipment. One of the things that we were able to do in 2005 is we were able to get a radio system for both school districts. It was through federal grant funds. They revised emergency operations plans, and it was not just for active violence, but it was for all hazards. Because if you prepare for any hazard, you can prepare for active violence. So they have, both districts have radio systems now where they can talk on 2-way radios between either the police department or building to building or inside their buildings, because we all know in an emergency, if you've ever been to an MSU football game and tried to use your cell phones are the first things that are going to fail. We have an incident at one of the schools. We're going to have an influx of parents and media, and cell phone towers are going to fail, but communications can still stand up between law enforcement and the school district. The school district can communicate amongst their staff using 2-way radios, and they train on those regularly as well. We received some grant funding in 2015, increased new doors, door lock systems. Both schools are equipped with electronic locking systems. Our personnel have code keys and key fobs to allow us access into those schools. So if there is a situation and the school doors are locked, we can still get in. And both of the districts, along with East Lansing, because we have an East Lansing school up in Tower Gardens, we have an elementary school up there that Donnelly is an East Lansing school district. There are 3 school districts in Ingham County that have an emergency radio system. And what that alarm does is it gives direct call to the police department if something life-threatening was going to happen. So if there was an intruder, there's a mechanism they can put in place that then puts out on our radio system the school that the problem's at, and we will immediately respond. All officers go to that area. So that cuts that whole response time down from calling 911, dispatcher having to call. And then in the police department, the equipment that we've levied is we've got breaching tools. So if we can't get in a door, some of these incidences, they chain lock doors. We can't access them. We have breaching tools now in patrol cars. We have ballistic shields. We carry floor plans of the buildings so that we're aware of where an incident is and the surrounding rooms. I talked about the fact that each of our vehicles is equipped with keys and codes for the building so that we can access them. Some of the planning we've done is like I said, we did ongoing plan reviews with each district, making sure that they understand what our role will be and how we will respond. And then also we can help guide them into, what we would like to see or not see in an emergency response. We evaluate our response routes because sometimes if you get called to a situation, the quickest way or the way you think is the easiest way may not be available to us. We have railroads and such, certain other issues that can come up. So we have multiple response routes that we plan for. And we coordinate with outside jurisdictions. I was talking with Mary just before this meeting about school response. We've trained with the county. The county's trained with us. We all train to a similar response method. So if something bad was to happen, you're gonna have East Lansing, MSU, MSP, the county all respond. We all train together and kind of know how we're gonna respond similarly. And then best practices. Things have changed. In 2001, I went to active violence training, and I was an instructor. And since 2001, things have changed drastically. Some people may have heard of the term ALICE training. That's one of the new types of training that's out there, and it's a method of response. ALERT is associated with Texas University. That's another type of training that is that we're actually sending some officers to, and it's a sole officer response. One of the biggest critical statements that came out was that there was a police officer in Florida and that person didn't go inside. We're going to be teaching our officers, we're getting trained the trainers so that we can teach our officers how to appropriately and safely interject in a violent situation if they're the only ones there. We have 2 officers that have just gone to train the trainer for the ALICE training in case that's something that we would choose to go to. A lot of times when we go to trainings and learn how to do something, we'll pick the best pieces that work better for Meridian Township. We apply them here. We may not encompass the entire way they want to do things, but we'll pick those best pieces and bring them to the township. Another thing that we do is we have 2 officers that are dedicated to the school districts. Chrissy Scatia is the officer for Hazlet. She spends 40-hour work week working with Hazlet schools. 90% of any calls for service, be it bullying, be it just a school concern, Chrissy Scatia is going to be the one handling it. So she's a direct line of communication between our agency and the school. And then Brian Leroy does the same thing for Okemos schools. So we provide an officer dedicated to each district so they have a point of contact for any concerns or questions or things that might come up. And one of the most important things in the last few instances we've had is really getting those kids comfortable saying something to parents, teachers, preventing anything like this from happening. Because if they don't feel comfortable sharing those concerns, that's where we really lose. And we've had a couple of minor instances where kids were concerned. We'll never know if we averted a situation, but we had kids say some things, we did some investigating, and we were able to vet situations out and make sure that nothing bad was, the schools were safe. So those are the things that we do to try and make sure our schools are safe. We are always working with them and we'll continue to do so. Any questions?
I'd just like to say thank you for sharing that information with all of us.
Thank you.
Treasurer Reese.
Are you in Williamston schools at all, or because you're not patrolling that area, do we not have any?
So Williamstown Township is what we patrol.
Right.
The school, Williamston schools are all in the city. Now, I did attend an emergency planning session with Williamston schools because one of their points of evacuation is actually in the township. So if they were to have to evacuate one of the schools for any purpose, that access point is inside Williamstown Township. So we coordinated our efforts with those folks to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we have an understanding of what's going to happen if something bad does happen.
And are all of the police departments in the region working together in terms of if there was some sort of large incident, presumably, we would have a regional response. So what is your training in the region for these types of events?
So we do internal training, but we model our training after what the county-wide training is. And actually, we've had some folks that weren't able to attend the training that we provide. We do a 4-day so that we can get all our officers through. The county puts on a county-wide training, very similar tactics and procedures, and we've actually sent our folks to their training to, if they had missed ours, and they come back, and if there's any deviation, they share that with us. Typically, they come back and it's spot on.
So everybody's doing the same thing in terms of there's coordination between the police departments.
Right, and that's the most important thing. If you do have a situation at a school, it's going to be everybody.
That's a comfort to know, thank you.
Donnelly School is located in our township. It's at East Lansing School.
Correct.
What do we do for that school?
So Donnelly also has an alarm system. Now that alarm system actually will go to the East Lansing police officers because it's a district-wide. However, the communication between East Lansing, we're all on the same radio system. We would know about that. East Lansing would respond. We would respond jointly to any incident at that school. Now, if it's a non-emergency, we take those calls for service at Donnelly. But in an emergency situation, it's always the closest person. We work very well with our neighbors.
Thank you. You said the superintendents are here. I wonder if they could come up and do they have any comments they want to make about their safety in their buildings? Mr. Cook, you want to go first? Just to put you on the spot.
That's fine. No, that's fine. So I guess first of all, I just wanted to thank the township for their cooperation. The police department does a great job working with our school system and managing all the things that we have. Obviously, school safety has become a lot more important as of recent for what's been going on. So as Lieutenant Plaga said, we're in the process of reviewing our plans now and making sure that we're up to speed with everything that's going on. We're trying to get as much community input as we can in terms of getting our folks to understand what our current process is and what those plans are in terms of emergency procedures. And so, we try to stay in contact, communication with residents of our district and our school to make sure that everybody's on the same page to know what we're doing. So we feel pretty comfortable where we're going, but we always can improve, and we really appreciate the partnership we have with Meridian Township in terms of being able to make those strides moving forward. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Okemos.
Good evening. I'd also like to echo the support that we have received from Meridian Township Police Department. I'm just really impressed coming to this community, being the fact that I'm new. I'm wondering about how the response time and the partnerships. I have had absolute excellent service. We have, as Lieutenant Plaga talked about, we've reviewed our plans and decided to really go in depth with a district response plan. And that requires us to have a district safety team where we have outside experts. And Chief Ha already has assigned me with Plaga, and we are working on that along with some other persons like those mental health workers, because a lot of this, as he talked about building relationships, has to do with the relationship. Along with that, we have 2 persons from our district who attended the ALICE training as well, the trainer of trainer model, to wonder if that is the right fit for us. Right now, we're doing a lot of research just on what holes do we have, where could we fill immediately, where do we need additional input, and where we might be vulnerable, how might we get support. Ongoing trainings that are happening at all of our schools, and then all of the superintendents have been working together to ensure that we're working as collaborative a team, because of course, together we can do much better than just one independent district.
Maybe Mr. Cook could join you. One of the things we keep hearing about is that it's a 2-pronged approach. You got the safety in the building, but you got the mental health and identifying potentials before they happen. Is anything going on in your districts with regard to that?
Yes, we have a mental health assembly actually tomorrow at the high school, and it will be followed up with a community speaker in April. And so if people are interested, they can go onto our website and attend that event, because part of this is we understand it's not just the schools, it's that partnership with homes. And many times our parents are seeking help and going to facilities and doctor's appointments, but what else might they do at home? And so we are doing the assembly at school, sending home some resources, but then I'm having a community event with that speaker in April, so a month later, to be able to continue the work, not just a one-time thing.
Mr. Cook, anything happening in Hazlet?
Yeah, so we too have a mental health crisis team that we put together, and basically it's made up of all of our mental health professionals, social workers, counselors, psychologists in our district, and they really work together to put together plans in crisis situations. So whether that's an active shooter, whether that's a death in the school, whatever that might be, they have plans where they can respond and come to the districts, either in a single building or in a district, and be able to respond to kids and to parents in terms of what their needs are. So we've been very fortunate to have a pretty great staff in terms of mental health professionals. We also send out information to our community to make sure that they're understanding what's going on. If their son or daughter or their student is having issues, where can they turn to? What can they do? Not only for the student, but for parents too, because parents also need resources to know how to have conversations with their students in terms of things that are going on in the building. Because one of the things we really try to push now is really students and parents are our eyes and ears of what's going on in the community. So we really work hard to make sure that they're aware and they're noticing of things that's going on. And if they are, that they have methods to communicate back to us. We have a program that's through the state of Michigan called OK to Say, which is a volunteer program where kids can text or call in if there are any threats or anything's out that they see, whether that's any issue at all, and then that information is brought back to our school district, so we're able to respond to those situations. So we have a lot of good networks out there in terms of trying to get our community involved, because really, as Elena said, we can't do it alone. We have to do it together in collaboration with everyone. So,
Thank you. Any board members have any questions of the superintendents? Thank you both for coming and for doing such a great job in our two favorite school districts.
thank you very much. Have a great night.